So, you like me want to become a Ramattra one-trick? Well, welcome to the order, brother, because I'm about to teach you the ways. Now obviously no one is an expert on Ramattra yet, or could teach you to be great at him, and anyone who says so is lying. But having had early access to the hero, I can definitely tell you the basics so that you can get a head start and don't have to worry about fumbling your way through this hero. Instead, understand these principles about Ramattra and get to enacting vengeance on humanity for their crimes. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is where Ramattra is bad. Yes, an odd thing to say in a guide on the hero, but to understand where you are strong, you must first understand where you are weak. I think Sun Tzu said that, maybe, probably not, but Ramattra's greatest weakness is that he lacks any mobility. When you look at his kit on the surface level, you'd think that he'd be a similar hero to Doomfist, with both of them having similar abilities in the power block and this punch mechanic in Nemesis Form. But remember that Doomfist is a hero built entirely around his mobility. It is his ability to travel long distances, quickly get in and out, and displace others which makes Doomfist the hero he is. For Ramattra, it's kind of the opposite. He's going to be a tank who is going to struggle to cover distances, so it is very important you remember what I'm telling you. Instead, you should think of Ramattra as a combination of Sigma and Reinhardt. In his default form, Ramattra is most akin to Sigma, in that he is a tank who will play around his shield and cover to do damage from a medium distance. Now looking at his staff, Ramattra's damage is steady but not explosive. You will need to track and lead with your aim, and sure, if you shoot a bot in the practice range with all headshots, it feels like he does crazy damage and will wreck people fast. But in reality, when you're shooting targets fairly far away who are moving, you'll see pretty quickly that Ramattra will not suddenly delete people across the map. Where a hero like Roadhog can come in with sudden bursts of damage to get quick kills, you as Ramattra are mostly going to be poking with your staff. That means you'll be looking to do damage to pressure enemies so that they are forced to run away or waste their resources, rather than necessarily getting a lot of picks. And the thing to help you do that will be his shield. Now here's my most important tip to you for the shield. Do not waste it early. Remember that once you deploy Ramatra's shield, it is very strong, but it is temporary and it cannot be redeployed. So if you throw it out and it turns out you didn't need it, you're going to be without that important cooldown for a long time. So I encourage you to cycle your shield with your HP, meaning that you should let yourself take a bit of damage, don't just die and say SCB told you to die before you use your shield. Take a bit of damage before you actually resort to deploying your shield. If you deploy your shield as soon as you start taking damage, you can end up panicking over what turns out to be little bits of poke that weren't threatening to you, and then you don't have your shield for the real damage coming ahead. On top of that, if you take a bit of damage to your HP, then deploy your shield, you buy yourself time to get healed up by the time your shield runs out, meaning that you will have effectively absorbed more damage for your team and increased your uptime in the fight. Uptime being the amount of time where you're actively participating rather than, say, being dead or just hiding and not fighting because you're too low. Now, I know a lot of this sounds underwhelming so far, but here's where we get to the badass portions of his kit. Ramattra's final ability in his default form is his slow, the Ravenous Vortex. It throws a slow in a decently sized area, which remember can pluck down heroes like Mercy or Pharah from the sky. A quick tip about that, because it looks in the cinematic as if it can pluck her out from absolute Narnia, but actually the range is fairly small. So characters can fly above the Ravenous Vortex, so here's how you catch Mercy in particular reliably. Mercies will often try and fly as high as they can all the time, and if they're with a Pharah, you're probably not going to catch them. But what you need to do is wait for the moment when they actually Guardian Angel to the one character that they're ramping up into the air to, or if they just come in because they want to res or heal someone from closer by. When they're at that moment when they're closest to their target for the Guardian Angel, that's around when you want to drop the Ravenous Vortex so that she can't fly up and she can't escape because she will have just used her Guardian Angel. So that's how you get free picks on Mercy. Now, on the ability in general, what's interesting is that you can use this ability in both your forms, the normal and the Nemesis form. How you use them in each form though is completely different, and understanding this difference will allow you to understand the fundamentals of Ramattra. When you're in your default form, you will generally use the Ravenous Vortex to stop enemies getting close, and when you're in your Nemesis form, you will use the Ravenous Vortex to stop enemies escaping. Let me repeat this for emphasis. So when you're in your default form, the long range form, you're generally going to use the Vortex to stop enemies getting close, and when you're in your Nemesis form, your short range form, you will use the Ravenous Vortex to stop enemies escaping. You can think of your default form as your pre-fight form, the form you will spend most of the game in, but the one you're using before you really get into the thick of the action. At times like this, you may face enemies who want to get right on top of you when you're not ready. Maybe heroes like Reinhardt who want to get close to swing at you. Use your Vortex to slow them down so that you and your team can get more of that poke damage in and interrupt their attack on you. But once the fight begins, or better yet, once you decide that the enemies are ripe for the taking, you can activate your Nemesis Form and try to get kills to win. Nemesis Form brings with it two significant changes. Firstly, your weapon becomes your fists, which is pretty cool in of itself. And secondly, you get access to your block. More on that later. The pummel fists in Nemesis Form are actually really cool, but they're not going to shred your enemy tank. Use them instead to target down squishy DPS and supports, and remember that it cannot be blocked by things like shields, so once you get close enough, you can just go to town on a target who is killable. This is also when you'll want to use your Ravenous Vortex to basically box that target in, not giving them time to escape. Remember that it does not last long at all, which is why it's really important that you time it correctly, just like your shield. So when you do spot someone who's just used their mobility or just gotten in close to you, that's the time to use their Vortex, and it should be too hard for them to escape while you land a couple of fairly generously hitboxed punches to finish them off. Now, onto Ramattra's block, and it's okay. Again, unlike Doomfist's power block, which when hit grants him a charged punch, which is way better than his regular punch, Ramattra's block just reduces the damage he takes while slowing him down. So there's no explicit incentive for you to go to seek to use it. So whereas with Doomfist you'd be actively looking to use your power blocks and baiting shots into it, you should avoid having to use your power block as Ramattra, because that's time you're not spending damaging. Instead, you're largely going to want to use it when you're in trouble, and need to buy time before you get healed. There is one amazing benefit to it though, which is that you can use it to absolutely negate huge bursts of damage, like a Diva Bomb or a Junk Tire. In this clip, you'll see my friend Boger try to solo Rip Tire me, and I just shrug it off. And then the most important tip I can obviously give you is to assert your domination with some tactical crouching. There is a place that the block is of very good use though, and that is his ultimate. Ramattra's ultimate, Annihilation, allows him to slowly damage all enemies around him, and the fun mechanic about it is that while it ordinarily only lasts a couple seconds, if there's any opponent around you who is being affected by it, that timer will freeze, and you can keep it going for ages and ages. In this clip that I'm gonna leave running, and by the way, this was only my first ever game on Ramattra, and I still managed to pull this off, you're gonna see that I managed to get my ultimate to last for an entire minute, in which time I killed 3 enemies in an overtime fight, and would have killed the 4th and won the point, except I took a step away and I C9, and I'm pretty bitter because I think it's because of how quickly points flip over now in Overwatch 2. But anyways, you can see just how powerful this ability can be in the right situation. And the biggest hint about that right situation is already there in front of your face, which is that it is an incredible ability to use in overtime situations. The normal problem with Ramattra's ult is that the enemy can just choose to run away from it, and if you're not faster than them, you'll never catch up, which goes back to Ramattra's big problem of a lack of mobility. That being said, if you can get close to enemies who have used their mobility cooldowns, like this Moira who just used her fade, or who don't have any mobility to begin with really, like this Symmetra coming out of spawn, then this ultimate is almost certain to get kills. But the one place where you can guarantee that the opponents have to fight you is overtime and on the objective. So definitely use your ultimate when you get it, don't hoard it just for the overtime. But if the objective is close to being capped or flipped, or if it's overtime and the enemy team have to fight you, then popping your ultimate is going to get you huge value because it will constantly damage them while staying active. You can then choose to either use your fists and pummel to do more damage and get kills quickly, or you can just block and stand there and absorb all their damage while you're slowly killing them. Awesome, isn't it? So that should give you a brief but hopefully solid foundation on Ramattra. If you'd like to learn more, then join me as I learn more myself in the upcoming season, where I'll be aiming to be a Ramattra one trick live on stream at twitch.tv/svb_. If things go well, I'll be posting more guide and educational content on Ramattra in the coming season. But this is all any of us can really have for now. I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons who do the awesome job of supporting me, and if you'd like to support me too, then please do consider signing up. But for now, I'll say goodbye to you, my Ramattra brothers and sisters, and I wish you the best of luck with this awesome hero. And hopefully, I'll see you guys very soon.